A wealthy single dad spotted an African-American service member waiting at a bus station and declared, "You're accompanying me," before bringing her to his residence. The precipitation hammered against the windscreen of the luxury vehicle when James Morrison noticed the solitary figure at the abandoned transit stop. He wasn't typically someone who would pull over. He had a crucial appointment in 20 minutes, and his affluent lifestyle didn't accommodate impromptu charitable gestures. However, something about the woman's posture compelled him to hit the brakes hard. She remained there, rigid as a monument despite being drenched completely. Her service uniform remained pristine despite the tempest, her decorations gleaming against the dark material. She was clearly a military member who had recently returned from somewhere distant and extremely perilous. James lowered the window. "Hey, are you planning to remain there until you turn into ice?" The woman gazed at him with eyes that had witnessed excessive trauma. "I appreciate it, sir, but I'm okay." "No, you're not," he responded, unlocking the door. "Get inside. That's not a suggestion." Lieutenant Diane Collins paused momentarily. At 32, following 3 deployments in the Middle East and a flawless military record, she had developed wariness about trusting quickly. Yet there was something in this gentleman's tone, an authority that didn't stem from pride but from someone who understood suffering. She entered the vehicle. "James Morrison," he said, offering his hand. "Lieutenant Collins," she responded, gripping his hand firmly. "Where are we headed?" "To my residence," James replied, observing her reflection in the rearview mirror. "You appear like someone who requires a secure location to process whatever occurred today." Diane shut her eyes. If only he understood. 3 hours prior, she had been removed from the military installation where she had served for a decade. False accusations of disobedience, career ruined, benefits terminate, all because she refused to stay silent about what she had observed during her final mission. "What's your motivation for this?" she inquired. James remained quiet briefly. "Because I identified the expression of someone who has been deceived by the very institution she pledged to defend." It was an unusual response from a man driving a $200,000 luxury car. Diane examined his profile. Jaw set, eyes concentrated on the street, but with a profound melancholy that wealth couldn't conceal. "Were you ever in service?" she asked. "My spouse was." His voice became almost imperceptibly harder, before she learned that some adversaries wear the same uniform as you. The vehicle halted before a estate that resembled something from a publication. Perfect lawns, enormous windows, the embodiment of the American dream. But Diane observed something most people would overlook. Surveillance equipment on every corner, fortified gates, and James constantly checking his mobile device. A man who possessed everything but lived as though he were perpetually on high alert. "Welcome to the stronghold," he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "My daughter will be thrilled to meet a genuine hero." Hero, the term resonated in Diane's thoughts with bitter irony. If only he knew that currently she was technically without a home, without a career, and possessed only $300 in her account. But there was something in James's gaze, not viewing her as a victim or charity case, but as an equal, as someone who comprehended that some conflicts aren't waged on battlefields, but in conference rooms and military tribunals. As they approached the entrance, Diane had no notion that she was about to enter not merely a house, but the epicenter of a tempest that would challenge everything she believed about justice, loyalty, and the genuine cost of bravery. Inside the estate, James observed Diane examine every corner with eyes trained to identify dangers. She noted the exits, the cameras, the vulnerable spots, automatic military conduct that confirmed her suspicions about this man's identity. "Daddy," a gentle voice called from the stairway. A 12-year-old girl emerged, her curly hair framing a face that combined childhood delicacy with premature wisdom in her eyes. "Emma, come meet Lieutenant Collins," James said, the pride in his voice unmistakable. Diane knelt to match the girl's height. "You may call me Diane. Are you truly a soldier?" Emma asked, fascinated. "I was," Diane answered, the word carrying weight that James immediately detected. Later, while Emma watched television, James served coffee in the kitchen. "Would you like to discuss what happened today?" Diane hesitated, then decided she owed an explanation to those who had provided her refuge. 3 months ago, during my final mission in Afghanistan, I witnessed something I shouldn't have observed. She paused, the words weighing heavily. My commanding officer, Colonel Bradley Mitchell, was redirecting medical supplies intended for Afghan civilians. He was selling them illegally and keeping the profits. Soldiers under my command were perishing because we lacked sufficient equipment, while he was funding an estate in Virginia. James leaned forward. "Did you report it?" "I followed proper channels. Mitchell's deputy, Major Stevens, told me to concentrate on my own duties." The irony in Diane's voice was sharp. 2 weeks later, during a rescue mission, 3 of my soldiers died because we lacked basic medical supplies that Mitchell had sold the previous week. "What did you do?" "I documented everything. Transaction printouts, photographs of supplies being loaded onto civilian vehicles, recorded conversations." Diane touched her phone in her pocket. "When I returned to the United States, I brought the evidence directly to the Pentagon." James saw the anger intensify in her eyes. "And they ruined you for it." "Worse, they accused me of fabricating evidence and attempting to blackmail a superior officer. They claimed I was a problematic soldier with a history of insubordination, a history that mysteriously materialized from nowhere." Diane laughed bitterly. "Within 72 hours, my decade-long career, my pension, my medical benefits, gone." "Is Mitchell still commanding?" "Not only that, he was promoted to general last week." Diane's voice trembled with suppressed rage. "Meanwhile, I'm officially homeless, with $300 in my account and a damaged military reputation that prevents me from obtaining any respectable employment." James was silent for an extended moment, then surprised Diane with an unexpected inquiry. "Do you still possess the evidence?" "Everything. Backups in 5 different places." She studied him. "Why do you ask?" "Because you may not be the first person Mitchell has silenced. And perhaps," James paused, selecting his words carefully, "perhaps you found someone who knows how to utilize that evidence properly." Diane raised an eyebrow. "What type of business do you operate, James Morrison?" "The kind that teaches powerful men that not every war is fought in uniform." He stood, walking to a shelf and retrieving a framed photograph. "This is my wife, Rebecca, or she was." The photograph showed a beautiful woman in an Air Force uniform, medals gleaming on her chest, a radiant smile on her lips. She discovered that her commander was selling flight information to terrorist groups, information that resulted in 3 American helicopters being shot down. James's voice hardened. When she reported it, she was charged with treason and espionage. Diane felt her stomach drop. What happened to her? Suicide. At least that's what the official report stated. James put the photograph away with excessive care. "She called me the night before she died, saying she had discovered something significant, something that would be in the newspapers the following morning. They found her body at 6 a.m. The silence between them was heavy. "After the funeral," James continued, I spent every dollar I had investigating her death. I uncovered a network of corruption that reached the highest levels of the military hierarchy. But evidence isn't sufficient when the judges are complicit too. So you surrendered? James smiled, but there was no humor in it. I didn't surrender. I changed my approach. I spent the last 5 years constructing a military technology empire, billion-dollar contracts with the Pentagon, relationships with senators, generals, journalists. He looked directly at Diane. Sometimes to defeat the system, you must become larger than it. Diane processed the information. You're suggesting that... I'm suggesting that perhaps it's time to teach General Mitchell a lesson about underestimating people he considers expendable. At that moment, Diane's phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. Diane Collins, you should have learned to remain quiet. Some truths cost more than a career. They cost lives, a friend. James saw the blood drain from her face. Threats? They know my location, she whispered. No, James corrected. They know where you were. Now you're under my protection. And trust me, Diane, I've learned that the best defense is a devastating offense. Diane looked at the man before her, seeing not just a millionaire single father, but a soldier in a different kind of war. A war fought in boardrooms and courtrooms where revenge was served cold and calculated. Why are you doing this? She asked again. Because, James said, already picking up his laptop, some ghosts only rest when justice finally arrives, and because something tells me you're not the type to surrender easily. As he typed, the screen illuminated with government contract files, military officer profiles, and a network of connections that would impress any investigator. Diane realized she hadn't stumbled into any house. She had stumbled into a command center. Something inside her that had been broken began to reorganize, not in despair, but in anticipation. Mitchell had seriously underestimated who she truly was. More importantly, he had completely underestimated who she had just allied herself with. The war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. 3 days after the threat, Diane's life transformed into a meticulously orchestrated, bureaucratic nightmare. Her bank account was frozen under the pretense of a financial irregularities investigation. Her rented apartment, the landlord had received an anonymous tip about suspicious activity. Her former military colleagues stopped returning her calls. General Mitchell wasn't just trying to silence her. He was systematically erasing her existence. He's using the classic playbook, James explained as he pored over documents in his estate office. Social isolation, economic pressure, destruction of credibility. My wife went through the same process. Diane held an official letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs. They denied my request for medical assistance. They said that because I was discharged under questionable circumstances, I'm not entitled to benefits. Her voice trembled with contained anger. 10 years serving my country, and now I'm treated like a criminal. Emma appeared at the door carrying a cup of hot chocolate. For you, she said shyly to Diane. Dad said you're going through a difficult time. Diane accepted the cup, touched by the kindness. Thank you, sweetheart. Mom was a soldier, too, Emma continued. Dad says women soldiers are the bravest people in the world, but not everyone understands that. After Emma left, James leaned forward. I need to show you something. He opened his laptop and navigated to an encrypted folder. For the past 5 years, I haven't just been building a company. I've been building a network. The screen showed a complex family tree of military, political, and media connections. Senators Mitchell thinks he controls. Investigative journalists with a history of taking down corrupt officials. Military officers who are clean and hate what men like Mitchell do to the uniform. Are you suggesting an information war? I'm suggesting strategic justice. James clicked on another file. Remember Rebecca? Before she died, she didn't just get evidence on her commander. She got evidence on an entire network, including a young major named Bradley Mitchell. Diane felt the blood drain from her face. Mitchell was involved in your wife's death? Not directly, but he was part of the scheme she uncovered, and when she threatened to expose it, James clenched his fists. Let's just say some accidents are very convenient. The next morning, an unexpected figure appeared at the door. Senator Patricia Williams, a black woman in her 50s, a former military officer known for her crusade against corruption in the Pentagon. James told me about your situation, she said bluntly, without beating around the bush. And I've known Bradley Mitchell since he was an arrogant major who thought the rules didn't apply to him. Senator, I appreciate your concern, but I don't know if... Let me stop you there, Lieutenant Collins. The senator sat down, her presence commanding immediate respect. 6 months ago, my committee began an investigation into military corruption in the Middle East. We have suspicions, but we need solid evidence. You've appeared as a gift from heaven. Diane glanced at James, who nodded encouragingly. What exactly are you proposing? That we stop playing defense, the senator replied. Mitchell thinks you're just another troublesome soldier he can crush. He doesn't know he's messing with an operation that goes far beyond his petty ambitions. James opened a new folder on his computer. Over the past 3 days, while Mitchell has been playing at destroying your life, my cybersecurity team, all ex-military personnel Rebecca helped recruit before she died, has been monitoring all of his communications. The screen filled with printouts of messages, emails, and audio recordings. He's not just selling medical supplies, James continued. He's selling military intelligence to private contractors, overcharging the government, and using American soldiers as pawns in a personal enrichment scheme. That's treason on multiple levels, Diane murmured, studying the evidence. And the best part, the senator smiled with satisfaction, tomorrow he's making a presentation to the Senate Defense Committee, asking for increased funding for equipment modernization. It will be broadcast live on C-SPAN. Diane began to understand the plan. You want me to... We want you to show up at that hearing, James said, not as an accused soldier, but as the lead witness in a Senate investigation, with backup from senators, irrefutable evidence, and national media coverage. Mitchell thinks he silenced you, the senator added. Imagine the look on his face when you stand up in that audience, microphone in hand, with the entire country watching. That night, Diane couldn't sleep. She paced around the house, processing the magnitude of what was about to happen. James found her in the kitchen at 3 a.m. Nervous? Not nervous, determined. She turned to him. You've been planning this for 5 years. I've been preparing for the right moment for 5 years. You're the right moment, Diane. Rebecca would be proud. Diane touched the phone where she kept her original evidence. He really thought that by destroying me, he would destroy the truth. Men like Mitchell always make the same mistake, James said softly. They confuse silencing the messenger with silencing the message. The next morning, as Mitchell prepared for his triumphant presentation to Congress, completely unaware of what was about to happen, Diane adjusted the lapel microphone that the senator's staff had provided. Remember, James said on the phone, coordinating with his tech team, the moment she identifies herself, send the files to all press contacts simultaneously. I want it to be too late for damage control by the time Mitchell realizes what's happening. Diane looked in the car mirror on her way to the Capitol. In 48 hours, she had gone from a homeless, disgraced soldier to the centerpiece of an operation that could change the entire system of military corruption. But as the Capitol loomed majestically against the blue Washington sky, one question hammered at her mind. Had Mitchell really underestimated the situation that much? Or was there something they didn't know yet? Because men who rise to the rank of general rarely survive that long by being completely naive about their enemies. That's when her phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "I see you found some powerful friends, Diane. Too bad they don't know the whole truth about you. See you at the hearing, someone who knows your darkest secret." Diane's blood ran cold. Mitchell had discovered something that neither James nor the senator knew about. Something from her past that could destroy not only her, but everyone who dared to support her. The congressional hearing room was packed, with C-SPAN cameras broadcasting live, when General Bradley Mitchell took the podium, adjusting his impeccable uniform laden with medals. His presentation on military equipment modernization was about to secure billion-dollar contracts and another opportunity to embezzle millions. "Honorable Senators," he began in a confident voice, "our proposal aims to protect our soldiers with cutting-edge technology." In the audience, Diane took a deep breath. James whispered to her side, "Remember, when Senator Williams gives the signal, stand up and identify yourself. The rest is in our hands." Mitchell continued his polished presentation, completely oblivious to what was coming. "Unfortunately, we face problematic soldiers who spread misinformation about our operations, trying to tarnish the reputation of dedicated officers." That's when Senator Williams leaned toward the microphone. "General Mitchell, before you continue, I would like to introduce a special witness who has relevant information about your operations." Mitchell's smile faltered for a split second. "Senator, I don't understand." "Lieutenant Diane Collins, please introduce yourself." Diane rose slowly, and the blood drained from Mitchell's face as if he had seen a ghost. She walked to the audience microphone, each step echoing in the sudden silence of the room. "Good morning, General Mitchell," Diane said, her voice clear and firm. "Surprised to see me?" Mitchell tried to regain his composure. "Senator Williams, this woman was discharged from military service for fabricating evidence and it is precisely those allegations that she is here to testify about." The senator interrupted. "But first, I would like the public to know what Lieutenant Collins really discovered in Afghanistan." James, sitting strategically at the back of the room, discreetly activated his laptop. In real time, files began to be sent to dozens of journalists in attendance. "General Mitchell," Diane continued, "do you remember this conversation?" She held up a small audio device. "Recording from March 15th at 2:30 p.m. in your command tent." Mitchell's voice echoed through the speakers. "Colonel Stevens, those medical supplies are worth $50,000 on the black market. Send them to the usual contact and transfer my share to the Cayman Islands account." The room exploded in murmurs. Mitchell jumped out of his chair. "This is a fake, a montage." "Interesting," Senator Williams said calmly, "because we also have these photographs." The screens in the room filled with images of Mitchell supervising the loading of medical supplies onto civilian trucks. "And these bank records," James added, standing up and walking to the front, showing transfers of $470,000 to the general's personal accounts over the last 18 months. Mitchell was losing control. "Who is this man? He has no authority to—" "James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Defense Technologies," James replied with a cold smile, "and the man who supplies 60% of the communication systems you've used to coordinate your illegal operations. Systems which, by happy coincidence, automatically record all communications for security purposes. The color drained from Mitchell's face. He realized the trap. He had used James's own technology to incriminate himself for years. "Senator," Mitchell stammered, "I can explain." "General Mitchell," Diane interrupted, "3 soldiers under my command died because you sold the medical equipment that could have saved them. Private Peterson, 22 years old, Private Williams, 24 years old, Private Rodriguez, only 19 years old." Her voice didn't waver once. "They died while you were buying your 3rd house in Virginia." The silence in the room was deafening. Mitchell tried one last desperate gambit. "You don't know the whole truth about her," he shouted, pointing at Diane. "She killed innocent civilians during an operation. That's why she was really discharged." Diane smiled for the first time since she had entered the room. "General Mitchell, thank you for bringing that up." She turned to the audience. "That is exactly the lie he planted in my file after I confronted him about corruption." James activated a new screen. "Here is the original report of the operation before it was altered. Lieutenant Collins saved 16 Afghan civilians during a terrorist attack, risking her own life. And here," added Senator Williams, "is the recording of the order General Mitchell gave to alter that report and create the false charges against Lieutenant Collins." Mitchell's own voice echoed again. "Destroy her reputation. Make up whatever you need to. She can't look like a hero when we're tearing her down." Mitchell slumped in his chair, the weight of defeat finally hitting him. All the lies, all the corruption, all the arrogance, all crumbling live on national television. "General Mitchell," Diane said, stepping closer, "you said that some soldiers are a problem. You're right. Soldiers who refuse to remain silent when they see officers betraying their own men are indeed a problem for people like you." The cameras captured every detail of Mitchell's humiliation. His empire of corruption, built through years of abuse of power, was crumbling in a matter of minutes. James watched with satisfaction as reporters bombarded Mitchell with questions he couldn't answer. The man who had indirectly caused Rebecca's death was finally paying the price. "The hearing is adjourned," Senator Williams announced. "General Mitchell, consider yourself under formal criminal investigation." As Mitchell was escorted out of the room by military police officers, he passed Diane one last time. "You don't know what you've gotten yourself into," he muttered under his breath. Diane stared him down. "General, in 10 years, I've learned that there are 2 kinds of soldiers, those who protect the innocent and those who protect themselves from the innocent. Today, the entire country found out which kind you are." As the doors closed behind him, Diane finally felt something she hadn't felt in months. Not revenge, but justice. The difference was that revenge would have left her empty, but justice was leaving her whole. James approached her in the hallway, crowded with reporters. "How do you feel?" "Like a soldier," Diane replied simply. "For the first time in a long time, like a real soldier." But as camera flashes exploded around them and Mitchell was led away in custody, one question remained. What happens when justice finally prevails? Are some victories too big to be true? Or does the system sometimes really work when the right people come together for the right reason? 6 months after the hearing that destroyed General Mitchell's career, Diane watched from the window of her new office at the Pentagon. Officially reinstated to the armed forces with all honors restored, she now headed a new military integrity division created specifically after the Mitchell scandal made national headlines. The irony was delicious. The man who had tried to destroy her had inadvertently created her dream job. "Major Collins," James corrected, entering with coffee. Diane had been promoted 3 times in 6 months, a historic redress that became a case study in military justice. Did you see the news about Mitchell? James nodded grimly. Former General Bradley Mitchell had been sentenced to 20 years in prison for treason and corruption. His fortune had been confiscated to compensate the victims' families. His wife had filed for divorce, and his children had changed their last names. Even more devastating, he was serving his sentence in a military prison where corrupt former officers were not exactly popular. "He tried to call me from prison last week," Diane continued. "He said he wanted to apologize. Did you take it?" Some people confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. I forgave Mitchell for my own well-being, but that doesn't mean he deserves a second of my time. Emma came running in, now 13 and radiating confidence. "Diane, Dad said you won another award." "Military Integrity Award of the Year," James confirmed proudly. "3rd this year." Diane looked at the stack of letters on her desk. "I get 50 messages a week from soldiers reporting corruption. The division he indirectly created has already investigated 23 similar cases on bases across the country." The phone rang. "Major Collins, Senator Williams, on line 2. "Diane, great news. The bill to protect military whistleblowers passed the Senate. Soldiers who report corruption will now have automatic legal protection." After hanging up, Diane leaned back in her chair. 2 years ago, she was homeless at a bus stop. Today, she was literally rewriting the rules to protect honest soldiers. "You know what gives me the most satisfaction," she said to James. "It's not seeing Mitchell in prison. It's knowing that no soldier will ever go through what I did. This law will protect generations." That night, during dinner, Emma asked a question that summed it all up. "Diane, do you regret reporting the general?" Diane looked around the table. James smiling genuinely, Emma growing up with an unshakable sense of justice, and a family built not in spite of adversity, but because of it. "Emma, the truth is an expensive luxury, but it's always worth the price. Mitchell tried to teach me that some secrets cost careers. I taught him that some silences cost souls. General Mitchell now shares a 6-by-9-foot cell, eating food from a metal tray and counting the 20 years he has left to live. Diane Collins heads a division at the Pentagon, lives in a mansion with the family she chose, and wakes up every day protecting honest soldiers. The best revenge, she discovered, is not to stoop to your enemy's level. It's to rise so high that they become irrelevant. If you've ever faced injustices that seemed impossible to overcome, remember, the truth has a strange way of finding its way into the light. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove courage always beats corruption.